Have you ever felt like your life was falling apart? Right when you thought it was supposed to be coming together? You begin questioning things you once believed. Relationships start to feel different. Conversations that once felt meaningful now feel empty. The life you spent years building no longer feels like it fits. And suddenly, you find yourself wondering, what is happening to me? Many people call this spiritual awakening, but what few people talk about is the dark side of awakening. Not because awakening is bad, but because awakening often begins with loss. And if no one explains that to you, it can feel terrifying. Most people imagine awakening as a beautiful experience, more peace, more clarity, more purpose, and eventually those things can come. But before they do, something else usually happens. The illusions begin to fall away. You start seeing patterns you couldn't see before. Patterns in your relationships, patterns in your family, patterns in your own behavior. Things you once ignored become impossible to overlook. And while that sounds empowering, it can also be deeply uncomfortable because awareness changes everything. You can no longer unknow what you now know. You can no longer pretend that something is healthy when you recognize that it isn't. You can no longer force yourself into environments that no longer align with who you are becoming. Awakening often begins the moment your old coping mechanisms stop working. The things that once distracted you, the things that once numbed you, the things that once helped you avoid difficult emotions. Suddenly, they lose their power, and now you are left face to face with yourself. For many people, this is the moment they believe something is wrong, but often nothing is wrong. Something is being revealed. One of the darkest parts of awakening is loneliness. Not because people disappear overnight, but because resonance changes. You begin craving deeper conversations, more authenticity, more honesty, more meaning, and sometimes the people around you are not interested in going there. This can create a strange sense of isolation. You may find yourself surrounded by people and still feel alone, not because you are broken, but because you are changing. And change can be difficult for both you and the people around you. Another part nobody talks about is grief. Not grief for a person, grief for a version of yourself. The version who didn't know, the version who tried to fit in, the version who was comfortable staying small, the version who believed that external achievements would finally bring lasting fulfillment. As awareness expands, parts of your old identity begin to fall away, and every ending, even necessary ones, carries grief. Many people think awakening is about becoming someone new, but often it feels more like saying goodbye to who you used to be. There is also an anger phase that catches many people by surprise. You begin recognizing ways you abandoned yourself, the boundaries you never set, the needs you ignored, the relationships where you accepted less than you deserved. And when you first see those patterns clearly, anger can surface. Not because you are becoming less spiritual, but because buried emotions are finally rising into awareness. Healing does not always feel peaceful. Sometimes healing feels like finally allowing yourself to feel what was never safe to feel before. Then comes perhaps the most confusing stage of all, the in-between. You no longer resonate with your old life, but your new life hasn't fully emerged. You don't feel like who you were, but you don't yet know who you're becoming. And this space can feel uncertain, messy, directionless. Many people assume they are lost during this phase, but often they are simply between identities. The caterpillar dissolves before it becomes the butterfly. Transformation requires a period of uncertainty, and that uncertainty can feel incredibly uncomfortable. The truth is, awakening is not always a journey of becoming more. Sometimes it is a journey of shedding old stories, old beliefs, old fears, old identities, old survival patterns. And while shedding ultimately creates freedom, The process itself can feel disorienting. What makes awakening difficult is not the awakening itself, it is the resistance to what awakening reveals. The more we fight what is surfacing, the more painful the process becomes. The more we allow ourselves to witness it with compassion, the more transformation becomes possible. If you are moving through a season where everything feels uncertain, if you feel disconnected from your old life, if you feel like parts of your identity are dissolving, know this: you are not failing, you are not moving backward, and you are not alone. Sometimes what feels like falling apart is actually the beginning of coming home to yourself. Not the version of you created by expectations, not the version of you shaped by fear, but the version of you that has been waiting beneath it all. And while the dark side of awakening is rarely discussed, it is often where the deepest transformation begins. If you're navigating your own healing and awakening journey, subscribe for more conversations about healing, transformation, and becoming who you were always meant to be. Until next time, take care of yourself. You are not lost, you are becoming, and that matters. Thank you for taking the time to connect with my content, and always remember, you are loved.